Hello and welcome to the Dream Job Ready podcast and video series. My name is Dane Sharp, I'm your host, and my guest for this episode is Dr. Sameer Dixit, a biomedical scientist and the Director of Research at the Centre for Molecular Dynamics, Nepal.
Please note that the opinions of guests are their own and not those of the companies they have worked for. This is Dream Job Ready with Dane Sharp.
G'day Sameer, thank you so much for joining me on the Dream Job Ready podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on. I know you're a busy man right now given everything that's going on. Just start us off, mate. Can you let us know what you're currently doing and what your role over there in Nepal is caught up with at the moment?
So, Dane, thank you very much for having me, first of all. I'm an infectious diseases research scientist in Nepal. My education background is just that. I'm a life sciences professional. Now I'm applying my life sciences knowledge to public health in Nepal. And to coming back to your question, infectious diseases, are a problem in Nepal, like many other developing countries, and especially with COVID going on right now. So I'm the government team, and I'm trying to initiate a couple of research projects, looking into COVID and Nepal, and trying to collaborate with international scientists, and also advising the Nepal government by being part of the team, by being member of a team led by Ministry of Health and Population. And I've just been invited yesterday by the Minister for Science and Technology, who called me personally yesterday and asked me if I wanted to be a high-level team that the Ministry of Science and Technology is trying to initiate for COVID also. So all these things are happening around me, and it's pleasantly, not surprising, but it feels good. It feels very good, and that's keeping me busy.
Great, mate. Obviously, my podcast series, aims to speak with people that have dream jobs and are in, careers and work situations that, the rest of us aspire to and dream about and, work our asses off to try and get. I'm not saying that anyone working on coronavirus right now is in a dream job necessarily, because obviously the world's got some huge issues. But I must say, looking at how much study you did, at university and through all your degrees you've done, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, the amount of work you've done and obviously starting the organisation you have, this kind of situation that's going on around the world must be almost what you're working towards to avoid probably, but you must be working to this kind of situation, right?
Yeah. So, I might sound like a sadist, and I don't mean to be. I don't mean to be a sadist, but infectious diseases, excite me because, and especially the epidemiological part as to understanding what the pathogens are doing, how they occur in the society, what impact they have in the society and the public, there's a lot of detective work going on. And like, for example, with the COVID, it's 4 months old. We know so little about this new, mutated strain of corona, right? And it's so interesting to find out what's going on, what's really going on, right? And the developed country scientists bring out all these facts and figures, and then we scientists in the developing side of the world try to understand, well, does that relate to my part of the world, right? Is it exactly what they're saying? For example, you have all this mortality happening in, I'm just giving an example, USA, Spain, Europe, and America. But yet in Nepal, or other developing countries, we're seeing infections, but the mortality is quite low. So the question is, questions like that, like why? Is it that we're not seeing, or is there something else going in the population? Stuff like that. That's what I love about my job, is trying to understand, is there something else going on besides what we read, or maybe we're missing something completely, or maybe we know something more than we should. So this is the exciting part of my job, and that's, with not just COVID, any other diseases that affect our country. These are the questions I like to ask.
Could you give us a read about the current situation in Nepal? You're joining me via Zoom right now. I'm obviously in Sydney. We're in lockdown. Right. There's mixed messages in the media. Some media saying we are starting to flatten the curve. Others aren't. What's the situation in Nepal, mate? Because it looks like online you haven't been as impacted as some other areas.
Yeah. It's hotly debated topic, mate, here also. We are on lockdown also. We have been on lockdown for the last 7 days, and the government just extended that by another 8 days until next Wednesday. And then the international flights will be extended. The lockdown for the international flights will be extended further 4 to 5 days after that. So basically, we are same as you guys or the rest of the world. But interestingly, we are on a lockdown with only 4 cases. In fact, the government locked us down, or we locked ourselves down after only 3 cases. So then 2 more cases have popped up after that. But yeah, so it's been over a week since the lockdown started, and in that lockdown period, we really only increased new cases by 2. And then that's why it's debated as to are we in a position, or should we be locked down? And the answer seems to come from the World Health Organization suspicion that if something like what's happening in Europe and America were to happen in developing countries such as Nepal, we would not be able to handle the influx of the severely sick, the ones that require hospitalizations. So can we handle that? And the World Health Organization doesn't seem to think that we can. So that's why I think it's more of a precautionary lockdown rather than a situation-based lockdown. But yeah, so we have so far no official mortality and officially only 5 cases. And one part of the debate is that maybe our testing is not as good or as efficient as we'd like to think. That's why we might be missing cases. And the other part also is that we are not testing as many cases as we should. I mean, we only have tested about close to 1,000 so far. And out of 1,000, as I said, just been 5 that have tested positive. So there's a lot of question marks going around in Nepal right now. But then we haven't seen any extra influx of dead cases in any of the hospitals in Nepal. It's very hard to find out what's going on.
I completely understand it, and obviously, that's great news. But to your comment before, you've obviously got an inquisitive mind and an interest and a passion, about this whole situation, and that's what I think we'll really get into along the way, because any student that's out there obviously studying similar studies to what you have, or starting their profession, that curiosity is obviously a key driving and motivating factor in many careers, no matter what the profession or the industry is, right? And talking about being kind of job ready, you mentioned before you've got a meeting coming up today, I believe, with the Ministry of Health. How ready are you for that meeting? How ready is your organisation to help with this whole situation?
So we are ready. In fact, my lab helped government diagnose or detect the first ever case of COVID in Nepal.
Wow.
So we at that time the government lab was not well positioned or well prepared. So they asked for our help, and our lab actually had some WHO recommended detection kits with us.
Wow.
So we did the testing, and then subsequently provided the kits to the government, and then they did the work. Now they have sufficient, and they have got their own supplies and all that. So we are prepared, and we have had multiple meetings with the ministry, and we've told them that we are in a position to help them whatever they want. And in fact, we just helped them strengthen a semi-autonomous teaching hospital in eastern Nepal with our supplies and with our human resource support. So we are in a position to, we haven't been in a position to support the government or anyone else for the last 12 years, really. But in the last 5 years, we have become quite respected organization in not just Nepal, but worldwide in the area of emerging diseases and other infectious diseases, research and surveillance.
Yeah, so if you could explain a little bit more about what your the Centre for Molecular Dynamics Nepal does, because as you said, that you've had this organisation for over 12 years now, right? You're a founding member of that, and I believe you employ over 50, 60 different researchers and staff. So I'd love to hear both about the organisation itself and also just about the staff and the researchers you have, and most importantly for my podcast, how does someone get a job with you?
Yeah, so our organization is not just for scientists, because we have people from management, we have people from finance, because it's an organization. Everyone has to put their parts. We have life sciences experts, we have sociologists, we have public health experts in our team, and we have management experts. But the actual lab is what drives us forward, because we are essentially, even though we're a public health driven organization, our lab is our strength. And for our lab, we have all the life sciences graduates who do the work. And in order to work with us, we don't usually, in fact, we don't take in undergraduates. We only take postgraduates. And even then, we have very stringent requirements. And usually, we have a lot of applications when we do request an application for a job. Unfortunately, we can't give job to everyone. So we have to be very careful how we select. And our background has to be life sciences. We need some level of molecular knowledge. In fact, if not all, because we are a molecular lab. That means DNA, RNA, and that sort of work. And we do also require the people that are in our team don't have to have world-class experience, but we do look for individuals who have this big passion for doing the kind of things we do. Because with so many life sciences graduates every year, everyone wants to work with us because of reputation. But we also have to be careful who we get in. We train them. We train them over 3 to 6 months as they work with us. But we also need to be sure that how they are ready to take any responsibilities. Our machines are expensive, and one mistake and our machine can go. All sorts of things we have to think about. But for anyone that has worked with us, and I'm sure my staff can one day vouch for that, the experience that they get from working with us has taken them to universities like Oxford and all the international universities around the world. So yeah, it appears that what we take from them, we also give back to them, and for them also it's a very exciting part of their life journey to be working with us.
Oh, 100%. And I'm sure out of all those different employees and all the different departments you have, both in the lab and also out in the business engine room, are they coming from all over the world to your organization, or do you try and hire locally as much as possible?
Yeah, so hiring is only local. I mean, we have
That's
to be
awesome.
careful because unfortunately, it's not really our drive to have only local, but unfortunately, in Nepal, science and technology is such a it's not really looked at as a priority. It's an unprioritized area, and we are trying to prioritize this area. And as such, there are very few organizations that actually cater to this market of science and technology. And I say market because obviously we have to give services, right?
Yes.
So because of that, there are very few jobs available for science and technology graduates in Nepal. And we are, I suppose, one of the leading ones that, take in extensively science graduates. And again, we have to, with such a low job market, if we don't cater to the local graduates and start taking foreigners, we don't look like we're promoting our local, science, students and science graduates. So we have to cater to that. But we do have science students from all over the world, especially Australia. I'll have to focus on that also, and US and Europe, coming to us, spending 4 to 6 weeks as part of the internship for either global health or science or whatnot, and do the work that we are currently doing. So we get those students regularly in our organization.
That's awesome, mate. And how would a student organise that type of experience? Is it university locked? Like, is there certain universities or colleges that you work with, or is it a potential opportunity that anyone, studying biotech or any kind of molecular sciences could chase up if they wanted to?
That's anyone. We do have certain universities that keep on coming back to us,
Yep.
But it's an open initiative. It means that the student can contact us, but we do require that they have some university or academic linkage, because then it has to be organization to organization agreement, right? So they come in, they first find out information from us, and then if they're interested, they have to go through the university and then link us up with them, and then we plan out everything, and that's how it's worked so far. And we have, it's a very open process. They can just contact us at CMDN, and then we take it from there. And we have a team set aside just to cater to those students wanting to get some experience in a developing country settings, but with access to a high-tech lab and also the reality at the ground in the field. So we give them both experiences.
Mate, you've been in this game for a long time now, and we'll talk through a little bit more about some of the other research and work that you do across things like hepatitis, HIV, etc. I was just curious. We're talking about jobs and I guess coming into this industry, does an event like this with COVID-19, whether it's a crisis or something amazing in a different different time, does an event like this spur, you think, more interest in people to go and study this kind of field and want to work in this kind of field, do you think?
Yeah, I think one is a situation, also and other is the people that are involved in this. For example, many people, many students, young students have come up to me in recent times, well, it's in the last 5-7 years. They say, we make science look exciting. We give science something to, young students in science looks for something exciting in the future careers, right?
Sure.
Now here we are doing some detective work, trying to understand disease, epidemiology, and they are scientists, and there's a life sciences background. So all of a sudden, science is no longer boring for them.
Sure.
So we're not producing anything. We're not really producing from scratch in our organization, although we do have a vaccine for some chicken diseases that we're trying to work with the government, with the scientists in Australia and Netherlands. However, those are like pre-prepared, but we try to just develop try to produce here in Nepal. However, stuff like that we do here gives the young scientists, the young researchers, the young students something to look forward to in the field of science. So, and especially now, like for example, when you have COVID, when you have dengue outbreaks, which we had last year in Kathmandu and surrounding areas, diseases that all of a sudden were not even thought about or talked about in the rest of the world, we're starting to see in an increased manner. Then we have diseases such as TB that's always here, is inherent in Nepali population, and cholera that's always present. So these are examples of what students think they want to be engaged in Nepal.
Sure.
And then we give them the opportunity, and what we have done has shown the young people of Nepal, young scientists of Nepal, and also region that, hey, you can study science and do some exciting work.
Sure, mate. I understand, and let's talk about study, because you had to do your fair share. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I zipped in and did 3 years at university at UOW to get my journalism degree, and then I was out. I look at you, mate. You started and ended, and there's a lot of years in there. Do you want to talk us through what kind of study someone has to do?
So mine has been a bit of an outlier because I did two extra years of masters. But normally, you have your undergrad, then you have your postgrad, and then you have your doctorate. So I did all of that, but then I have that 2 years extra masters at Wollongong University. It's just that it so happened that when I joined Wollongong University for my postgrad degree, the first degree I got was still not enough for me to think about PhD. And even my supervisors at that time thought, well, there's enough research there, but not the amount of research required for PhD was still not enough based on the curriculum. So that's why I had to go for another 1.5 years of specialized masters. So, but then not everyone has to do that. So basically, you have to put in education if you want to do something substantial in the field of science. If you want to lead rather than just follow, that education is very important in science, and this is what kind of defines science from I suppose other fields of knowledge, because science is all about understanding a topic to the core. You can't get to the core until you start digging.
Yeah.
And the digging is the study part, right? So yeah, it might look like a lot of studies, but then the more digging you do, the more studying you do, the more you are able to get into the depth of things and understand the situation and the topic better. And then that's, I think, is a pretty important part of science.
Oh, completely agree, mate. And talking about understanding the situation, looking at COVID-19, is it something that obviously this kind of situation you said excites you and drives your your passion. Does this kind of thing scare you, or are you looking at stuff way worse than this in your lab, and it's just another day at the office?
So it's like this. COVID is obviously a serious threat to people's health.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say necessarily life, because we do have mortality, but then the mortality compared to the total number of people infected in the population is quite low. But the problem is it's infecting so many people. That's why people are worried, right? It for me to, because again, that's where public health and life sciences kind of separate out. Even though I'm working in public health, public health point of view is, oh my God, people are getting infected, people are dying. So what kind of interventions we do? Me as a life sciences scientist, that look at the virus. Is it mutating? Is it getting worse? And the answer, it doesn't seem to be the case. Okay. And again, my life sciences and my immunology background tells me, wait, so when you start tapering off, the infections start tapering off, are we getting to herd immunity stage? Is the body's immune system starting to understand this virus better? Or maybe the virus is not mutating to a severe level, but maybe it might be mutated to a lower level. These kind of things is how I look at the situation. And so far, from what I see, we might be getting towards the lower end of this spread than a top end. So I'm actually positive that this thing is actually on its way out. So, but that's why I am not scared, because again, that life sciences knowledge in me, it drives that thought process. But a typical public health person who doesn't come from a life sciences background or a clinician for that matter may see situation as it happens right now. And they look at the trend as it happens right now, and they don't know what to make out of it.
Sure.
So yeah, so for me, having that life science background, I think is somehow an advantage. It's still, I mean, I use that to my leverage, trying to understand the disease and not be scared. And when it comes to my lab, we are not really doing full-on diagnostics at the moment because government hasn't asked us to do it. Yes. So they have kind of asked the hospital-based labs to do it because of the risks and all that, and sample delivery, you need samples, obviously. You need cases to come to the hospital. So government is right now only focusing on the hospitals or ones with fever clinics where the potential infected individuals come in. So we are not a hospital-based lab, so more of a research lab. So we are on standby whenever they need us, but right now we're more focusing on the research side of things in the coming days.
No, I get it, and just on the research part again, for young scientists, young researchers, just getting into their career, where do you really see the opportunity for young people if they're sort of looking at a couple of different options or a couple of different fields to work in? Where's your where do you see the opportunities in the industry you work for? Where would you like to see more people putting time in research?
So something we seem to be missing, and I did used to teach at Kathmandu University for 5 years. So I was involved in when the university started this department of biotechnology. I was involved in it. So when I left, they were fully fledged department, right? Since then, after my friends and I initiated this organization that I'm currently working for, and also management, one thing keeps recurring. We have the life sciences people, a lot of the people that work for us, and also in this field, there are a lot of life scientists working in the labs and all that. That's great. But I wish some of the life sciences individuals, with the background of life science, would also look into having a degree or background in public health also.
Okay, so crossing over a bit more.
Yeah, I don't have a public health degree, but I'm in the public health sphere. But I'm there because of my interest. I'm technically a life scientist. If you ask me, are you a public health specialist? I can't say that because I'm actually a life scientist.
Gotcha.
But for the last 10 years, I've been working in the public health sphere with my knowledge of life sciences. Now, I wish there were more individuals that come into public health sphere with a life sciences background, but with a public health degree also. So what that gives is a new a vantage point to see public health.
Yep.
So for example, right now, the clinicians there are a lot of clinicians with a public health background. That's great. That's the old school thought, like you have a clinician, doctor who has a public health degree, but they see things only from the clinical background. What if you have life scientists like me with a public health background, understanding the pathogens and the human immunity, how the body interacts with the pathogen, and then how that either goes down to the community level or doesn't. You see, not because every individual is different.
Sure.
What you see in Italy or Spain may not be what you see in Kathmandu or Nepal. Even what you say in Kathmandu may not be something you say. Kathmandu is my city, by the way.
Yes.
South of Nepal. So we need to start seeing diseases and outbreaks and pandemics from very localized perspective also.
Right.
And that is missing. So that's why I wish we could now have more public health professionals that have not just a clinical background, but also life sciences background, and try to see a new way, form a new way of thinking as far as outbreaks and disease and pandemics are concerned. And that is missing. And that's something I would really like to see.
That's great advice, mate. I really appreciate that. Hopefully anyone listening that's sort of, really trying to find their way or trying to find that exact purpose, takes that on board. I think there's a lot in there that you could probably take to any industry or any field of work. To be honest, I know I work in marketing and media, and just even in that, just to have some sales experience or have some commerce experience or finance experience, and actually, being able to kind of work together as opposed to working in silo is obviously so beneficial to business. So I think huge bit of advice, and I really appreciate that. You mentioned Kathmandu, which you said where's you were. I'm gonna take us on a quick tangent because I found this super interesting when I was reading up on you, mate. You're a host on a television show as well? Is that correct? Like you're not busy enough, mate. Tell us about that.
So So we have Good Morning Nepal, which is a daily live breakfast show. Very short, it's only half an hour. So it fits in right between two news segments in Nepal's leading private television broadcasting network, Kantipur Television. So I was invited by the people that were in the broadcasting in Kantipur Television, the top hierarchy. So they thought I had, I don't know, whatever it takes to be in a television and speak out my mind. So it was 2 years, almost 2.5 years ago now.
Wow.
And it was very strange invitation, but for a scientist, but I took it up. I have this tendency, sometimes good, sometimes bad, not to say no to anything.
Sure.
And sometimes it lands me in trouble, but usually it doesn't. So, and I thought, well, why not? So I joined, and it's been a great journey so far. So it's a live show. We stay off the pure politics. We talk about current issues, people who are doing great things in the society, awesome. Individuals who are trying to get new things done. We also anything like the people are interested in. We have guests sometimes. Sometimes we just discuss amongst ourselves with the content given to us by our researchers. So we have 3 of us, but any 2 of us will host the program at any given time. So there's always 2 people in the program. So it's called Good Morning Nepal. So yeah, it's fun. I'm enjoying it. It's doing good also in Nepal.
That's awesome, mate. I can't wait to check it out. Good Morning Nepal. That's gold.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk a little bit.
It's in Nepali, so you may miss some of the things. We did have the Australian ambassador with us, and also the American ambassador with us. So we're multilingual. We do Nepali most of the time, but sometimes English and sometimes Hindi. But people who could speak a word of Nepali or English, but could speak Hindi, Indian language, come to a show, we did it in Hindi. So we're pretty flexible.
That's great, mate. I'll check it out. I don't unfortunately speak any of those languages, but I'll enjoy it. I'm
English
sure.
You do.
Oh yeah, English. Oh, sorry, you did say English exactly. Yeah. I'll bring us back on track a little bit, but I did find that super interesting. So congrats, man. That's gold. Some of the other work that CMDN's doing, let's talk about some of the stuff related to animals and wildlife. You do a lot of work with wildlife conservation, etc. as well, right?
Yeah. So, but I must be clear on this. Even though the organization does it, I am not involved in it. So I do the public health part of things. My friend Dibesh and his team handle the conservation and the wildlife side of things. So it's like we have a division. There are some overlaps, but I try to stay clear from the purely animal part. But however, I must point out that nowadays it's all about One Health. One Health means any disease has 3 components: human, animal, and the environment. So some of the things, for example, my active interest is antimicrobial resistance. So for that, you have to look at animal part of things also. So in those cases, yes, I look at that, but the conservation part, I don't. But my organization does, and we've done a lot of work on that.
So you're just an antibacterial resistance. Okay.
Antimicrobial resistance is a major issue right now, where the antibiotics have stopped working pretty much.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm in the government team for that also, and so we try to advise the government, and we try to take this issue up to the global, the global community. And I've been to a number of conferences worldwide to talk about AMR, which is antimicrobial resistance. So I continue to work on that field also,
Yep.
and that's related to infectious disease. It's bacteria. Any bacterial infection has antibiotic components. So being an infectious disease scientist, AMR obviously fits right in.
Yep. Given your travels around the world and exposure to different organisations, different different fields within those different organisations as well. Short of someone coming and working with your organisation, where would you steer? Where would you tell someone to look right now? What country or what area of the world do you think has a big opportunity for researchers and scientists similar to yourself? If they're able to get that opportunity.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's a global thing. I mean, any country has its own strengths and weaknesses. For example, Nepal or any developing country have our own diseases, that you don't see. You don't see TB or you don't see, let's say, dengue so much in other, let's say, North America or Northern Europe. But we see that, right? TB is something that, is inherent in our population, as I explained, and there's so much research that's required. Malaria. I mean, like, for example, HIV or hepatitis, there are so many diseases that are inherent to a developing country situation as compared to developed country. Now, whereas emerging diseases now, looks like it's more in developed country as compared to developing country, right?
Sure.
Vector-borne disease is more for tropical countries, and in Nepal is sometimes included in that. So you have to look at what is of interest. So therefore, I think Nepal and many developing countries are excellent areas for vector-borne, infectious, emerging diseases also. So it depends on where you want to go. Like, non-communicable diseases might be an issue for the developed nations as compared to developing, like cancers, diabetes. However, now Nepal and other developing countries are transiting we're going from developing to developed, or low income to middle income. Now we're starting to see the diseases of the developed countries or the high-income countries, like diabetes and cancers are getting pretty prevalent in Nepal also, and other developing or low-income countries. So it's hard to say this or that, but then there's a lot of transition happening. And if I were to really pinpoint, low-income countries is where you can see everything now, whether it's infectious disease, whether it's a non-communicable disease such as cancer, diabetes, and other non-infectious diseases. So if I were to really fine-tune my public health skills or disease skills, I would focus on the developing country because you see everything.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense, mate. And just let's pretend you could go back 15, 10 years. Anything you'd do differently? Anywhere you'd want to focus differently than you had?
I mean, I would say right now where I am is exciting. I'm talking to you today because I obviously have done something correct. I've been giving interviews and here, there, everywhere kind of things, and I'm in the right place with the right people doing the right thing. So no regrets there. I've never regretted anything in my life. If I were to go back, like you said, 15 years back and do something differently, of course, everyone, if you go back 15 years, you learn from everything. In a hindsight, everything is 2020, right? So if you go back 15 years, say, well, I could have done this thing slightly different so that you could be even better position, right? So I might have nothing. If I were to change one thing, I might have tried to get a public health degree also.
Okay.
Now I keep thinking that, like, this coming back to what I just explained earlier in this podcast, is having that public health degree would allow me to have a bit more insight into some of the things I may not necessarily be exposed to. Mm-hmm. So even sometimes, even the theory, even if it doesn't appear in real life, the theory is also something that gives you a new idea to explore, right? So I might be missing out on some of the ideas that I may not have been exposed to because they're limited in theory. So maybe having a public health degree might have helped me. So it's a 2 master's degree in life sciences, 1 master's degree in life sciences, followed by a master's in public health, might have been of benefit also. But then again, that doesn't seem to have impacted me too much. But then again, going back 15 years, I might have done that.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. Look, we'll start wrapping this up. I'm very conscious of your time, mate. I know you've got a busy afternoon ahead of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do absolutely. I'm sure, mate. We do a student question of the week in every podcast. So I'm going to read this question out. I actually asked a cousin of mine who's at uni at the moment, doing some different types of global studies. I asked if she had a friend that had a key question, and this question's from Sarah Jane, and I'll just read it out. So Sarah Jane, should I say, asks, what is the one habit that you have that makes you successful?
Yeah, so I thank you, Sarah, for the question. I have many habits, I think. I'm kidding, but I mean, yeah, there are many habits we all of us have. But one habit I have is I challenge everything. I challenge everything that I read. I challenge everything that I hear. I challenge everything that's in the news. I even challenge things I read on peer-reviewed, whether it's Nature or Science. I challenge that, not just to contradict what the authors are saying or the people are saying, but just to give me something to look at, some angle that people may have missed completely. And that seems to help me find new research topics and to find new avenues to look at the same issue from a different perspective altogether. So as a scientist, I've been trained to challenge, basically. That's what my Australian education did. You challenge. As a scientist, you must challenge. You cannot always accept everything you read, even if it comes in big journals such as Nature or Science or wherever. You challenge, and I do that all the time.
Mate, I love that challenge. I think that's universal. It doesn't matter what role you're in. I reckon. I think that's a great habit and a great mindset. Dr. Sameer Dixit, I really appreciate your time, mate. This has been an awesome talk. It's been super interesting to me. I actually can't wait to go back and listen to it again because there's some stuff that I need to go and look up. Mate, leave us on one thought if you could. What for all us listening, all of us that aren't researchers, aren't scientists, don't get as excited or don't get excited about this kind of stuff like you do because it's your profession and your interest. What can we do? Like, what can the general public do to kind of help negate these kind of things in the future?
When you say negate, you mean for outbreaks or infectious diseases?
Exactly right, yes.
Yeah. So, let's be clear. I want to kind of just give you a different perspective to that question.
I'd love one.
Let's accept the fact that these things will happen over and over again. In fact, they will happen more frequently. Emerging diseases are there to stay. And if we take care of COVID today, there might be influenza strain coming next time. We'll have other viruses, other bacteria. We are continuously connected to animals, whether wild or domestic. We're connected to environment. So viruses and bacteria come from all angles. So therefore, let's not be scared that they will happen over and over again. Let's be prepared. Let's learn from the experiences that were done so far. We should have learned from influenza H1N1 outbreak in 2009. We should have learned from MERS outbreak in 2013-14. And we should now learn from COVID. Let's have a hospital infrastructures ready on standby. Let's have our surveillances on standby all the time. Let's have a global community come together, no matter which country we're in. Let's form a network so that we are talking to each other all the time. So even a little spark is already counted rather than waiting for that spark to ignite a big fire. So let's not run around putting out fires, but let's be prepared to see a fire as soon as there is a spark. So I think that is a message I think I would like to give to the global community of public health experts, scientists, and general population, clinicians, everyone, media, everyone.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much, Doctor. I really appreciate your time. Great luck this afternoon. I hope it all goes well, mate, and for you and your organisation. And I really appreciate your work and your time with us today.
Then thank you so much for reaching out, and I wish we could talk longer. And again, I reach out to everyone there. If they have any questions, they can always email me, contact me. I'm sure you'll give them my contact details. And I'd love to interact with any scientist, any public health professional, or even the public. I am available.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
You too, mate. See ya. Bye.